Hi everyone, welcome to week 7 of the Tadaima Fine Art Friday Artist Talk. Today we'll be showing you the work of Ellen Bepp and Reiko Fujii. The plan for tonight was for Ellen and Reiko to show their work separately and then have a combined discussion and Q&A session. Because not only are they friends, but the work plays nicely off each other and the dialogue between the artwork would have been interesting. However, Ellen won't be able to make it tonight. One of the results of the COVID-19 pandemic is that schedules change and people must be flexible. She just received word this week that a project she has been working on since last fall, the Destiny Art Center's The Elders Project, needed to do their final filming session at the same time as this talk. A little bit about the Elders Project. According to the website, the Elders Project fosters and deepens intergenerational artistic collaboration between elders and teens. As Ellen says, working with the Elders Project and the youth performance companies has filled me with a renewed sense of hope, admiration, and wonder. Both groups have taught me so much with lots of joy mixed in. So, while I'm disappointed that Ellen couldn't join us, we will show her pre-recorded talk so we will be able to see her artwork and hear her talk about her process. I was introduced to Ellen by tonight's other featured artist, Reiko Fujii. When I was talking to Reiko regarding her work, she asked me if I'd seen Ellen's work. I had not, so she sent me examples of her artwork. I was immediately impressed with her paper cutout work and her use of textiles in her mixed media work, and was moved by the stories contained in the pieces. After talking to Ellen about her work and how she incorporates her family stories in her art, I knew I wanted her to be part of Tadaima. Ellen Bepp was born in San Jose, California's Japantown after World War II. She grew up in a household filled with Japanese art and textiles, including her grandmother's flower arranging and kimono making and her grandfather's calligraphy. The 1960s civil rights movement spurred her to question the societal status quo, and she became involved in the Asian American political and cultural movement. In 1974, she began studying Taiko under Grandmaster Seiichi Tanaka of the San Francisco Taiko Dojo. She is one of the co-founders of San Jose Taiko and Somei Yoshino Taiko Ensemble. She explores the political connections between art, culture, and humanity as it informs her identity as an Asian American woman artist. She uses her art to address issues of social injustices of the World War II American concentration camps, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, and genocide of indigenous peoples. She has also participated in humanitarian and cultural exchange projects in Nicaragua, Cuba, and Mexico. Since 1980, she has exhibited her art nationally, including the Oakland Museum of California, the Berkeley Art Center, and the UFRAT Museum of Art. In 1988, she co-founded 9/11 Studios, an artist-owned live-work complex in Oakland, where her studio is still based. Ellen continues to explore the political connections between art, culture, and humanity as it informs her identity as an Asian American woman artist. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Ellen Bepp.
Thank you, John. First, I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate this opportunity to not only show my work, but to be a part of this important and rich Tadaima series. And I'm very grateful. I'd also like to thank all the viewers who are tuning in today. So a little about my family background. Most of my family was sent to Hart Mountain, Wyoming during the war. And that included my mother, Yoshi, who was 27 years old, my father, Yoneo, who was 36, my sister, who was 3, aunts, uncles, cousins, extended family as well. And my maternal and paternal grandparents were sent there. However, my mother's father was arrested by the FBI in 1942 in San Jose, and he didn't get to Hart Mountain until 1944. He was sent to 4 different enemy alien detention prisons, and those included Sharp Park, which was located where Pacifica is now, Angel Island, Lordsburg, and Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then they sent him to Heart Mountain. So it was like they were separated for about 2 years, which must have been very miserable for him. About 25 years ago, I wanted to create some artwork to honor and remember my family and what they had to endure during the war. So today, I'd like to share some of those earlier works and also bring you up to some of my current pieces as well. As we know, racism and xenophobia didn't just suddenly pop up in 1941. And I wanted to address that fact with this piece, which I call The Writing on the Wall. Using distressed materials, I tried to conjure up a sense of desolation and neglect. In the first detail, a weathered chunk of wood, the altered remains of an Asian-style shoji screen. In the next shot, you see images of barracks from one of the camps. And in the third detail, as you get closer, you'll see continuous lines of typewritten text. And these are actual quotes of racial slurs I took straight from history books dated from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. And I'd like to read 3 of the quotes. This state should be a state for white men. The state has the right of self-preservation. It is the same right that a man of family has to protect his house and home. We want no other race here. The second quote reads, Japanese coolie immigration is the most undesirable class possible. And the third quote reads, the Chinese belong to a degraded race, ignorant of civilized life. I do not see how any thoughtful lover of this country can countenance this Mongolian invasion. And this is too similar to what we're hearing today. The next piece is dedicated to my paternal grandmother, Somei Bepp. She was an Issei floral artist, kimono designer, seamstress, and one of my artistic inspirations. In the first detail, she's pictured rising from an envelope with the words Bepp's photo studio printed on it, belonging to her husband, Kiroku. The studio was located on Kearny Street in San Francisco before the war. She taught me not only how to sew, but how to see. She loved making things with her hands, and I definitely inherited that trait from her. In the next image, these images suggest memories of her life before camp, nostalgic Japanese folk art motifs, like the typical beckoning cats or the koi fish banners. And in the last detail, my drawings of plant life refer to the only plants that could survive in the barren desert where Heart Mountain Camp was located. As a flower arrangement teacher, she sadly was no longer able to create art with fresh flowers from her garden, one of her greatest joys. The next piece I call The Game of Go. And one of my grandfather Kiroku's pastimes was playing the Japanese board game called Go, a game of intense strategy, attacks, and counterattacks, like those used in war. In the first detail, I incorporated this metaphor of a board game to refer to how the US government used various strategies to round up the Japanese and put them away like pawns in a game. In the next detail, I also referred to other games such as bingo and Atari, or Atari in Japanese. And for those of you who maybe a little bit older. The name of the video game console released in 1977 was Atari. And in detail 3, the word Atari actually references a position in the Go game when a group of stones is imminently in danger of being taken by one's opponent. And thus, my grandfather was taken along with many others in this game of war. The next piece I entitled Heart Mountain Camp, and this is a poem that I found on a piece of paper in my parents' boxes brought back from Heart Mountain. It was such a moving poem that I carved it into a piece of found wood. I placed the Japanese character on the top, which means person or individual, or in Japanese, nin. And the bottom means full house, or o-iri, big admission. And I'd like to read the poem to you. Each stands only by help of the other. One by itself cannot stand. Without help, one person cannot live in this world. But by getting help and giving help, everybody can live. If nobody helped anybody, all people would fall down and die. And I think it's a timely message for the COVID era. So here in the next few pieces, I've changed up my materials, which I've done a lot in my life. And this one is Heart Mountain Hoppy. This is the back view. And I created a hoppy form as a reference to a hollow shell that normally holds life. It suggests haunting memories, reflecting loss and emptiness. Instead of fabric, my hoppy is made of small glassine envelopes, usually used for postage stamps, which is a nod to my father, who was a stamp collector at one point in his life. On the back I drew a rendition of Heart Mountain, barracks, barbed wire, and the text of my grandfather Kiroku's last will, written while he was imprisoned. And I'll talk more about it in a subsequent piece. Now, this is the front view of the same piece. On the front, each envelope contains text from Kiroku's personal journals from the 1940s that I photocopied onto transparencies, and then I inserted those into the envelopes. And these are various ruminations that he wrote down on the world situation. Here in the first detail, you can see a page out of the book. And he would write addresses, reminders, and so on. On this page is the glossary of words translated from English to Japanese, such as bleak, ligament, nostalgic, myth, amnesty, rescind, therapist, to name a few. And these notes are like a window into what was on his mind at the time. In the next detail, he made other notes taken from the Reader's Digest dated February 1943. This one with the numbers of Jewish people killed in German prison camps during the war from various countries. Poland, 3 million. Romania and Germany, 900,000 each. Hungary, 750,000, and so on. I think this is one of the most disturbing and frightening entries in his book, especially for someone held prisoner in a concentration camp himself. And then on this other page, in this detail, he even noted the name of one of the US Army lawyers who was on the defense team in the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal after the war. And that officer's name was Major Bruce Blakeney. So in the next piece, this is one of the earlier examples of my hand-cut paper pieces. And I started doing hand-cut paper after 2 different artist residencies that I did in Mexico. in 2014 and 2015. And I've always been taken by that form of art, the format, and the feeling that it emits. So this is a cutout of the last will written by my grandfather at Heart Mountain. And you notice it's dated 28 days after the Hiroshima bombing. This time I wanted to use the hand-cut paper medium to give even more weight to his words. To me, it creates a tension between an elegant artistic rendering contrasted against a serious, tragic topic. I'm not going to read the whole will, but I'd like to read just the last 2 lines. And he says, "We human beings are passing through the period of the greatest tragedy in human history. It seems to me that it was inevitable effect of primitive spiritual weakness of human races in evolution onto higher plane. All in karma, signed Reiko Bepp." The next piece is another hand-cut paper piece. And I created this for an exhibition curated by the Asian American Women Artists Association, honoring the legacy of Yuri Kochiyama, who passed away in 2014. Japanese American Nisei activist and civil rights leader. She guided and educated us around national and international struggles. After she and her family moved to Harlem in New York City, she not only worked with Malcolm X in the Organization of Afro-American Unity, but in movements for Puerto Rican independence, Japanese American reparations, fighting for freedom of political prisoners, and on countless other fronts for racial and social justice. This piece pays tribute to her words, an excerpt from her speech entitled "Mothers and Daughters," dated June 1998. The excerpts that I hand cut are in the white area. Yuri stressed the importance of being unified to strengthen our fight for justice. In the black center circle area of the piece, I cut out the word unity, translated into 63 languages. The next piece is called Scarred, and this was completed last year in 2019. The focal point of this piece is the civilian exclusion poster that notified people to report for incarceration. I cut out the words, "I am an American," and the poster stands in my grandmother's antique vase that she used for creating her flower arrangements. I wanted to show the irony of a personal artistic object like a vase with this ridiculous sign rising out of it. The pleading image of words cut into the wartime poster is visceral and demeaning, in contrast to the vase, which is symbolic of harmony and grace in the art of flower arranging. And this is another hand-cut paper piece called Reach, which I completed this year, right after the shelter-in-place period began. And this piece was created not only to honor those who were imprisoned during World War II, but also the present asylum seekers and migrant families who have been separated, put in detention, prisons, and or are languishing in refugee camps on the Mexico-US border. This is a call out to end these racist and unjust practices and to stop repeating history. I have 2 more hand-cut paper pieces that I'd like to share. These don't necessarily directly address the incarceration, but I'd like to show them to you. This piece has a long title. It's called 100 Unarmed African Americans Killed by Police in 2014. After I returned from Mexico in late 2014, I felt overwhelmed with the news of more killings of unarmed African Americans to police violence. This was soon after Michael Brown Jr. had been murdered. It was too much. I had to do something. So I found the names of 100 African American women and men who were killed that year, and I started cutting. There were many, many more. And this is a detail showing a little closer shot. And this final hand-cut paper piece I call La Venganza de los Milagros. And this is in Spanish, a statement of resistance against the US administration's border wall. In Spanish, La Venganza means revenge, and milagro means miracle. Specifically in Mexico, the milagro is the small votive offering, usually in the shape of various body parts or everyday objects, used for protection or as prayers for improvement. The milagros I depict here have transformed into a unified force, breaking through walls between nations and people. This piece pays tribute to the courageous migrants, refugees, asylum seekers who break through borders and struggle to defy persecution. I have a few more pieces I'd like to show. So to close my presentation, I'd like to share a few other more recent pieces. These are small square collages, and they are quite different from the other work that I've shown today. Initially meant to be personal, intimate sketches, these are sort of my way of channeling my ancestors' energy, you could say. In fact, in my first collages, I used my grandfather's calligraphy paper. My materials include vintage Japanese fabric scraps, handmade paper, used tea bags, hand printing, sashiko stitching, drawing, natural dyes, and more. My topics vary from issues of displacement or loss, transformation, liberation, and empowerment. I only ask for my viewers to reflect and listen to what each piece brings up for them. So this is the first collage, and I call it The Louder Side of Silence, dedicated to the memory of my maternal grandparents, whom I was too young to know. The next piece, Where Compassion Breathes. This is a plea to practice compassion to bring about world peace and transformation. Next is Where Secrets Are Born. The dark places in our lives that harbor the seeds of distrust, hatred, and denial. The next one, We Found Our Names in the Sand, finding liberation as we discover and learn from our history of incarceration. They come in threes, celebrating the three sisters in my family. And last, on a little more hopeful note, Spiraling Upward, expressing strength, hope, and a unified struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, for that amazing presentation. Like I said, I really wish you were here. I have so many questions I would have loved to ask, and I'm sure our viewers did too. But for now, let's go on to our next artist. Reiko Fujii is an artist storyteller who reframed her memories and family stories within the context of American history. She views it as her responsibility to preserve stories that go beyond the personal and touch of the universal of who we are and where we come from. Her work encourages an interplay between artist and viewer, allowing the viewer to immerse themselves into the narrative, thereby becoming a participant to the story. Reiko Fujii was born in Riverside, California, and currently lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. She received a Master of Fine Art degree from the John F. Kennedy University in 2004. She also received a K-8 elementary school teaching credential and a BA in psychology from the University of California, Berkeley. She was one of the 4 featured Sansei Japanese American women artists in the seminal exhibit, Distillations, Meditations on the Japanese American Experience in 2010 at the John F. Kennedy University Art Gallery. In 2004, she received the Susan Seddon Boulay Award from the JFK University, and in 2006, the Stephen P. Corey Award at the Pacific Center for Book Art's Bookworks exhibit. She has also received several awards for her glass art at Ohlone College in Fremont, California. She has been teaching, creating, and exhibiting art since 1989 and has shown her work extensively in the Bay Area and other venues in California. I'd like you to meet Reiko Fujii.
Well, thank you, John. As he had mentioned, I was born in 1950 in Riverside, California. My first home was my grandparents' farm on Jurupa Road. My birth came 4 years after 20 of my relatives were released from their imprisonment in World War II American concentration camps. This is a monoprint of my mother's family, the Inabas. I printed it from a photo from 1940. This included my grandparents and their 6 children, my great-grandparents and their 5 children, and their 3 grandsons, plus my Uncle Hideo's wife, Chio. My youngest uncle, Tony, wasn't born until March 1942, 1 month before all of them were arrested and forced to live in concentration camps. I do not have any photographs of my father from when he returned to the US. He was a Kibe who was born in America, then went to Japan to live with his parents between the ages of 12 and 18. He was sent back to America by his father a few weeks before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. He volunteered to go to Manzanar because he did not feel safe, especially since he could only speak Japanese. Before he left for camp, he was told to burn all of his belongings that had anything to do with Japan, including a wooden sword that he had carved and cherished. His family lived in Japan except for his oldest brother, Fred, who lived in a different city in California. These photos are fused onto recycled glass jars. The one on the left is my father and Fred. The one on the right is my father after he left Crystal City. Personal photos were rare during the first years of incarceration because cameras were not allowed until about 1945. I feel fortunate that my mother's family, extended family, friends, and acquaintances had photographs, although some of them were taken by professionals for the yearbooks. I love taking photographs and videos and working with old photographs as part of my art life practice. I will first talk about my 3 pieces based on the name of the Department of Justice concentration camp, Crystal City Alien Enemy Detention Center. The title for these 3 works was inspired by the stamp that was placed on the envelopes that were censored. In 2009, I decided to ask former incarcerees, including relatives, friends, and acquaintances, if they would recall a few memories they had from being incarcerated 68 years ago for a short documentary I was working on. I wanted to capture the different attitudes people had about their situation. The documentary is viewable through my website, www.reikofujii.com. From the photos I had gathered from participants in my documentary, I was inspired to make 2 more art pieces as part of the series called Detained Alien Enemy. This is a light box I asked my friend Jamie to construct to display images of envelopes my mother and her family received while imprisoned in Crystal City. The images are photo decals that I fused onto the glass at 1350 degrees. On the inside are bottles which I called bottled up memories. The photos are of the participants in the documentary, fused onto recycled bottles and filled with water, which acts as a lens to magnify the images. The third piece of this series is a wearable glass kimono that my husband helped me to make. I had worn my glass ancestral kimono too a couple years earlier in Manzanar while making my short documentary, Journey of the Glass Kimono. So I decided to have this photo of my daughter superimposed onto a picture I took while I was attending one of Manzanar's yearly pilgrimages. This slide shows a close-up of the images, which were all loaned to me by the participants in the documentary. I am often asked to explain what the glass kimonos sound like when they are worn. Here's a 24-second video that was taken at my MFA exhibit performance in 2004. My grandfather, Chikayasu Inaba, and his brother, Hideo, were arrested first, as many of the Issei leaders in the Japanese-American community were, on February 21st, 1942. The rest of the Inabas went to Manzanar on May 8, 1942. In the meantime, Uncle Tony was born on March 18th. Chikayasu first met his youngest son when he was over a year old, when the family was transferred to what was sometimes euphemistically referred to as the Crystal City Family Camp. My grandparents never threw anything away. My grandmother sent the nicest hand-me-down clothes to relatives in Japan and kept the rest. While rummaging around in trunks that had been brought from Crystal City after the war, my relatives and I found tattered clothes that were recognized as having been worn in camp. I was inspired to make an installation with the clothes, and I called it They Might Be Spies. Since it was cold in the desert, my grandmother made a vest in camp from using leftover yarn she collected. She kept patching it over and over and wore it on her farm after she returned from Crystal City. The farm was in our family for 80 years. My grandfather built the barn, the egg house, and chicken coops. I was lamenting to my friend and master shoji screen maker, Sambode, that everything was going to be demolished, including the egg house with my grandmother's chalk writing on the walls. With no hesitation, he said he would go down to Riverside with me and cut out a portion of the wall. Since then, the wall with the chalk writing has been in my studio, reminded me of my grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and the times I spent growing up on the farm. I created a 9-minute performance about my memories and my grandparents, including a short summary of their incarceration during World War II. The performance began with my younger self. During the performance, I transformed into my grandmother. Sambode and I also took the door to the egg house, which is now part of an installation telling the story of the farm through the family timeline. I sewed the family's timeline with photos onto rice bags. The rice bags remind me of my grandmother, who used the repurposed bags for everything: chair pads, rugs, rags, aprons, etc. My grandfather's handcrafted chair, which he made while he was in Crystal City, holds the end of the timeline. When I was young, my most memorable and favorite times were when I stayed at my grandparents' farm during my school vacations. When I found out in 2000 that our beloved farm was going to be sold in the near future, I started documenting our family gatherings and decided to put together a video using footage that I had taken over 3 years. The result was my short 10-minute documentary called The Farm. The YouTube link is on my website, www.reikofujii.com. In 2009, I was talking to my cousin Susie, a talented graphic artist, about putting together a book about the history of our Inaba farm. I coordinated the project, which ended up being a collaboration with the rest of the Inaba family. We wrote about our cherished memories and included family photographs wherever possible. As you can see, the book was professionally put together by Susie, with a timeline of our family history superimposed over the Japanese-American history in the United States. My grandfather, Chikayasu, was a skilled carpenter as well as a knowledgeable farmer. He was the fix-it man when he was in Crystal City. He had a shop in a trailer where he repaired broken items. Because he had tools available to him, he made several wooden pieces, including a chest of drawers, getas for his wife, inkstands, and trunks for each of his family members. Some of his camp artifacts are pictured in the book. The most recent project I have been involved with is a documentary, Sansei Granddaughter's Journey, where I collaborated with several talented people. Here is a 2-minute preview.
In April 2018, a journey began for 5 San Francisco Bay Area artists: Reiko Fujii, Ellen Bepp, Kathy Fujioka, Judy Shintani, and Sherry Arai DeBoer shared a common history. Their relatives were unjustly imprisoned in American concentration camps during World War II. These included Topaz Camp in Utah, Heart Mountain Camp in Wyoming, Gila River Camp in Arizona, Amachi Camp in Colorado, Crystal City Family Camp in Texas, Lordsburg Camp in New Mexico, and Tule Lake and Manzanar camps in California. This particular journey to the Manzanar camp transported the artists deeper into their families' roots, to imagine a time when their relatives were sent to desolate areas of the country. The artists sought to dig deeper beneath the layers, to reveal more about this unjust history that connected them, as they discovered unexpected insights and unique shared experiences.
Each of the 5 artists all had relatives incarcerated, but my family was the only one who was sent to Manzanar. This is the reason why we performed our rituals on the exact spot where my relative's barrack was located. Block 21, Barrack 4, apartments 4 to 6. I will finish with this photograph of my daughter and me wearing our glass ancestral kimonos in honor of my mother at her memorial in Half Moon Bay in 2016. Hi. I am so honored to be part of this program because there's so many artists that are just so outstanding and amazing. And so I really thank you, John, for inviting me.
Oh, it was absolutely my pleasure. I had a little technical difficulties I seem to have all the time, so sorry about that, people. I just, it's funny because it's something that Reiko, we have talked a little bit about this, but knowing and looking at your artwork, and especially just hearing that almost ethereal sound, kind of fragile, but at the same time very almost violent sometimes too, as of the glass clinking on the kimono, just was absolutely amazing. And but the thing that most people out there we didn't even know at the time, but the fact that when I saw that you talked about the kimono at your father's ancestral home, and want to talk about that trip.
Yeah, sure. Well, I decided that I wanted to make this this documentary about the kimono, and so I wanted to go to my ancestors' towns and then also to Manzanar, because that's where they were incarcerated for a year, and then went to Crystal City. So we went to Asumi in Wakayama, Ken, in Japan. That's where my father's family was from. They lived there for over 400 years. And then we wanted to go to Ibaraki because that's where the Nabas, where my mom's side of the family was from. So we went up there and then also to Riverside because my Naba family lives and still lives there in Riverside, but the farm is gone, of course. So it was an incredible journey, and I ended up making a short documentary. I always make short documentaries because I'm not really a filmmaker. I'm somebody who uses art in whatever way I can to express whatever I need to express. So I don't make like full on documentaries. I think the longest one I did was maybe a half an hour, and but that trip to Asumi was pretty incredible because I wore the kimono and I was invited to wear the kimono at the grave sites of my ancestors. And I was wearing some of their pictures on the kimono when I stood by the graves, which was, I just felt like I had a really deep connection there. And then we also went up into the mountains to Samoto, where my father's mother's family was from. It was a small farming village. And I wore the kimono there, and it was pouring rain when we were going up the hill in the car. And we were just thinking, well, we'll just go and honor our ancestors. But when we got there, the rain stopped. It stopped, and we decided it was okay to wear the kimono. So I wore it. I couldn't go all the way up to their gravesite because they were really far up the hill, but I wore it down below, and it was really an unforgettable experience. And then we got in the car and it started raining really hard again. Wow. So my aunts just kept thinking that was a good omen from the ancestors. So yeah, she thought that for the rest of her life, she always would tell people about that.
Wow. So is your daughter a part of the concept of wearing, or is she just a willing model for you to be able to document the dress?
Well, she's helped me make one of the kimonos. Okay. And she's very, she's interested in the Japanese American history. And when she was growing up, we always had Japanese things. We had, my husband's has a Czechoslovakian background. He's Czechoslovakian American, but she had best of both worlds. She had food that was Czechoslovakian that my mother-in-law taught me how to cook, and then she also had the Japanese food and went to Mochitsuki. So she was exposed to both worlds, which was great.
Mm-hmm. Well, two things that our families have in common. One, bringing up the idea of the going to Japan, was that my dad's family was from Isumi. And so it was kind of fun to hope that they knew each other at some point in time in the village, but we've kind of figured out they didn't. Which is odd because it's a really small village. And also, that mochi machine in the photograph is exactly the same one we used for decades in our family.
Did you have that kind of a machine?
Yeah, exact same kind. It's like the modified meat grinder machine. Yeah, we had the same kind.
Oh, I thought my Uncle Mitz had invented that, but I guess not. But
no.
Yeah.
I mean, because ours we didn't have it like against that wall like you did, but we had like a stand that we had the motor and the machine attached to it, and yeah, we still actually have a small version. We don't use it anymore, but we actually have a small version of that too. So what was it like for you for the first time that you went back to Manzanar, especially going back to your mom's barrack? What was that like?
Well, the very first time I went with my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first time that they had gone back. So it was, and I wore my kimono in Manzanar at that time too, and my dad would stand out there and tell me how the wind was blowing so hard that he used to wear a pomade in his hair that, like, I don't know, like a Brill cream kind of thing. And because he had volunteered to go to Manzanar because he felt his life was in danger of being out speaking only Japanese, just coming back from Japan, he volunteered to go to Manzanar. There was no hot water there. There were no roofs on the buildings. So he was telling me the story where the wind blew so hard and it blew the dirt and the sand in his hair, and he couldn't get it out for days because there was no hot water.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, how uncomfortable would that be?
Yeah. So he was actually one of the people helping finally setting up the camp then too? Was he in that group? Where they actually finished the camp?
I'm not sure if he must have worked on the camp, on finishing it, because he was there before it was all finished.
Wow. That's amazing. And going kind of, I'm skipping to the end now of this whole thing, because I was, and when you're talking about the egg house, and then you're showing like all the stuff that your grandfather built, and I'm just amazed at how much stuff, as far as like the cabinet and all the stuff that he managed to bring home with him after Crystal City. How?
Well, he had made quite a few trunks, and there were 7 kids in the family, and then my grandmother. So they brought quite a few trunks back. So I imagine they just stuffed them with things, and we're so fortunate to have those artifacts. They're kind of spread around the family. But he was so good with wood, and because he had the tools there in his trailer when he used to fix everybody's broken toasters or whatever. I don't know if they had toasters, but whatever. He used to fix everything. So I think in his free time, he made things. So he made some beautiful trunks, and I have a couple of them. But I think all the families have something of his that he made.
That's wonderful. When you're growing up and you go to his place, or surrounded by these things, so many people grow up not knowing about their family and how they fit into camp. How did you know about your families being incarcerated early on in life, or did you find this out later on, or in little bits here and there?
I think I found out what my parents would talk about their friends from camp. They would never talk about what that was about. But my Auntie Haru, I think I was in junior high school. She just started explaining to me that there was this time when they had to go to these camps, and that's where they met a lot of their friends. But I didn't really start understanding it because we didn't ever study it in school. And I think when I went to Berkeley, I took an Asian studies class, and then I started to learn more about it. But it wasn't until I started going back to school. I got my MFA really late in life. I started back to school when I was 45. And so it was, I forgot what I was saying.
Well, we're talking about basically how you learned, about camp, like your family, your history at camp.
Yeah. So that's, my Auntie Haru had explained it to me. And then when I went back to school, that's when I really started to investigate what happened in the history. And I was so sorry that I didn't know about it enough to ask my grandfather any questions. I wouldn't have been able to ask my grandmother because she spoke mostly Japanese and I spoke mostly English. But I have been so fortunate because everybody in our family who was there, and also like, my uncles' wives, and they have been so helpful in sharing their stories. And it's, I usually cry when I make art about the camps because I think about how my grandmother had 7 children and one of them was only about a month old. And here she didn't speak any English, and she had to go to this strange place without her husband because her husband was arrested earlier. And I can't even fathom that, how lost she must have felt. I mean, just having a newborn baby without going to camp is a lot. But I did hear that people like to raise their children in camp because there are so many babysitters, especially the older women, they didn't have a whole lot to do. So they like to help with the kids.
Kind of an instant village there for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the Heart Mountain painting behind you?
Oh, yes. Okay. So my mom painted that. She was somebody who, I don't know how many of her dreams came true, but she was really artistic and she loved working with us when we were children and making art and watercolors and making dolls out of newspaper and string. And so I was working on my MFA show, and she was over here, or over where I used to live. And I said, could you paint a picture that would remind you of camp? And she was so delighted. And so she said, but I need to look at a picture. And so she looked at a picture of, I guess this was Heart Mountain, that I had in my studio. And I gave her the paintbrush with black paint. And she didn't make any sketches or anything. She just took her hand and her arm and just did this and this. And she just painted that right there. And she looked so happy. I just thought if she would have had a chance to do more art or become an artist, she would have been really happy, but it didn't happen. So,
wow.
But I love that painting because it reminds me of that time. I'll never forget that. I had never seen her do that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was inside of her to be an artist.
Uh-huh. So let's go to your art now, since I haven't really talked about that much yet. When you do your art, we've had some artists come on into this artist talk, and one of the things they're really interested in is teaching about the experience, about the incarceration, and others people it's more about self-expression, or maybe even in a sense therapy or self-preservation. Your artwork is really intensely personal. Yet at the same time, there's a really nice superficial layer of teaching involved, where it's explained what's going on, but at the same time, it is kind of sometimes painful to delve into your artwork. What is the driving factor, the main driving factor for your artwork for you?
Well, I do like to talk about my work in terms of the incarceration in American history, and I have gone to classes when we could go into the classroom, especially at California College of Arts, and I have done presentations about my work, and I talk to the students about the incarceration, and that makes me feel like I'm spreading the word. And what I try to do is also encourage them to look into their family histories, and if they're interested, to maybe do some kind of art around it. But I look at my art as basically a healing process. I had kind of a crazy childhood, and so I've been studying that. Why things were the way they were, why my parents were the way they were, and through my art, I have learned a lot about how we are products of our society and history and our family, and what did they go through when they were little, and what did they have to deal with, and what kind of emotions did that bring up for them, and that they had to live with that for the rest of their lives. And then it goes to how they treat other people. I mean, that's with all of us. And that's why I always say the healing of society really comes, it has to come from within. It has to come from within us. How do we heal our wounds and face them? And that's what art has done for me.
Yeah, it's like when the idea, Satsuki-ina's idea of the generational trauma that has happened, and especially for, I wonder what it'd be like. I can't imagine what it'd be like to be a Yonsei or Gosei now, and to discover just all of a sudden this is a history that happened to your family, and to not have the grandparent who suffered through that, or the parent who suffered through that, to be able to help them understand what was our family's role, how, what happened in this whole world. We just have other people that knew them, or other stories, or general stories to kind of guide us what the thing is, to never truly find out maybe what happened, and how their family reacted, and how it affected them. So when you are you do you have any projects coming up that you're on the verge of doing or working on currently?
Yeah, well, I saw something on Instagram which really interested me, because I'm doing a lot of this mono printing, and I use it's called a gel plate, and it when you use I use mostly acrylic paint, and so when I print something, it can look like a silk screen. And so on Instagram, there's a guy who kind of, I don't know if he started it, but he invites artists and especially printmakers to make like a series of, say, 10 or 15, 20 postcards. And then they should be original and then signed. And then you post it on your Facebook page and you say, these postcards are available, and I will send you one if you private message me your address. But in return, I would like you to donate to a charity of your choice. And so you would donate whatever you think that postcard would have been worth. And I just think that is such a win-win situation for everybody, because in a way you get your art out there, because then you're supposed to post that you did these pieces, and then on this website, on this page that he had started. So then your art goes out to different people who are making these postcards, and it goes to it's a fundraiser, and then the people who get your postcard, they're supposed to post that they got this postcard, and they can say what charity they donated to. So I'm just starting to do that, and so then that made me interested in making Vogue postcards, and I have a little slide of that. So I was wondering if Royce could put up the slide of, let me see what number that is, of the postcards. It's like, well, it was so organized here. I didn't find the number of the postcard. Okay, well, I guess you won't be able to see them. Anyways, the gel prints are like the monoprint that I made of my grandparents and my great-grandparents, my Inaba family at the very first slide. And so I have been practicing for over a year how to do photo transfers with this gel plate printing technique. And it looks so easy, but even now, after a year I don't know, hundreds of prints, I still don't have much control over it. And in some ways, that's the beauty of the process, because you'll come up with some really weird, artsy looking thing that you didn't intend because the paint came off differently than you thought. And I just actually really love that, because I can take any photograph that has some contrast, high contrast in it, and I can print that photograph in acrylic paint. Because one of my main mediums is photography. So I love to do people's faces, and my granddaughter's 2 years old, and I love to do her face. And also I love to do animal, like mostly wild animals, and also our dog.
Okay.
But, yeah, so that's what I do with the gel press.
Okay. How did you get the images onto the glass kimono panels?
Well, Let me see. Where is that? Okay. Slide 28. Can Royce, can you put up slide 28? Is he here?
No, Kimiko's backstage where he leaves, so.
Okay.
So he's the one that has those, so we can't do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I was going to show you the differences between the three kimonos that I have.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is my ancestral kimono, and it's photo silk screen.
Okay.
Which is, yeah, it was quite a process. I had to teach myself how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But all the images of my family members are photo silk screen onto the glass, and then I fuse it. I fuse the paint on there.
Right.
But then my daughter's ancestral kimono is it's not they're decals. I have to send out photographs to a company that will put it on a substrate that will fuse to the glass.
Okay.
So it's, you know, it's a lot of work because you have to take it off the paper that it's on, and you have to put it onto the glass, and you got to squeegee out all the air bubbles, and then you got to let it dry for like 8 hours, and then you have to put it in the kiln. Then you got to wait for the kiln to cool down. So it's pretty labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was it a process that created a lot of broken pieces, or was it pretty reliable once it went into the kiln?
Oh, it was pretty reliable. The paint melting was, but I still, you know, it wasn't really the paint that didn't work. It was the glass. I used window glass. I used single pane window glass and double pane window glass.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they wouldn't melt the way I wanted them to. So I had to design the kimono so that there would be a little hole in the corner of the piece, because I didn't want to have to drill a hole in each corner because each hole takes forever to drill, takes forever in glass. So I designed it so that when the glass pieces crossed, there would be a little opening at each corner, and that's where I put the wire, the copper wire.
Okay. Wow. Well, we're a little over.
Okay.
It's your time. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up or talk about at all before we go?
I just I want to thank all my friends and family and everybody who are here, and really appreciate that you came. But I'm pretty much done.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. I had just an amazing time looking at your work, discovering you, and thanks to you, discovering Ellen's work and meeting you, both of you. I encourage you to the viewers out there to go to her website and see more of her work. Unfortunately, Ellen doesn't have a website, but what's the organization that you both are part of? The name of the organization?
Asian American Women's Artists Association, and she does have a few pieces up on that website. You can go to the artists page, and they allow us to have some photographs of our work in our statement. It's a really wonderful organization that what their mission is to give visibility to Asian American women artists.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just visited the site and looked at it and just got some really, really nice work up there. So thank you very much. And I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. And so next week we have Teresa Tamura, a photographer who photographed Minidoka, and Emma Nishimura, our second and final artist from Canada. And so thank you very much and have a good weekend.